Hello student, today through this video I will teach you the first chapter of history. The name of the chapter is The Birth of Modern India, When, Where and How. Let's start with the introduction. According to the historian, modern period of Indian history began with the death of the last great Mughal emperor Aurangzeb in 1707 CE. Here student, the early modern period began in the 16th century when the Mughal Empire conquered most of the Indian continents, becoming the biggest global economy and manufacturing power with a nominal GDP that valued a quarter of world GDP, superior than the combination of Europe's GDP. During the rule of Aurangzeb, people from different European countries had reached the Indian soil. After that, the Britishers slowly start building their roots in political, economic and cultural area. After successful fighting a series of battles against their French rivals and some powerful Indian ruler, the British emerged as the dominant or the most powerful in the Indian subcontinent. Apart from the trade wars, European trading companies came into conflict over the issues of their mercantilized interest and aspiration. Student, in this chapter, we will learn about the trade wars among the European companies and certain other related events in detail. In this chapter, our main focus will be on the events that took place during the period of about 190 years between 1757 and 1947, when India became independent from the British rule after a long struggle for freedom. We will also discuss why the period of British rule in India is also called colonial period of Indian history. Now students, let's learn about transition in European society. From the 17th century, many new ideas, philosophies and institutions started gaining popularity. In this sentence, it means during 17th century in Europe, many new ideas, philosophies and many social and political institutions came into an existence and started gaining popularity or slowly and gradually became famous. Their ideas, philosophies and institutions also inspired people to look for new means and technologies of production. European people gradually realized that distinct or different land could open up source of raw materials for their domestic industries and help them to discover new market for the consumption of their product. The term modern was originally used for the period of European history that include all this development with the collapse of the medieval feudal system. For example, in the world history, the modern period include a number of other important events such as the American War of Independence in 1783, the French Revolution in 1789, the formation of Italy and Germany, the two world wars, etc. Because of all these events, the Industrial Revolution in Europe clearly related to British rule in India. It is the most important aspect of the modern period in Indian history. Now, let's deal with Industrial Revolution. Industrial Revolution, now also known as the First Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution was a time when the manufacturing of goods moved from small shop and home to large factories. This shift brought about changes in the culture as people moved from rural areas to big cities in order to work. Student, these changes were taken place just because of introduction of new technologies and invention of new mechanical devices in Europe between the 18th and the 19th century. Here is one question. Why did industrial revolution was important? It is important because industrial revolution transformed economies that had been based on agriculture and handicrafts into economies based on large scale industry, mechanized manufacturing and the factory system. Now machines, new power sources and new ways of organizing work made existing industries more productive and efficient. They increase the quality as well as the quantity of industrial production. It also reducing the production cost. Here is another one important question. How did the industrial revolution change the world? The industrial revolution impacted the environment. The world saw a major increase in population, which increase in living standards lead to the depletion of natural resources. The use of chemical and fuel in factories resulted in increased air and water pollution and an increased use of fossil fuel. Industrial revolution spread throughout Europe, North America and the rest of the world. Now let's switch to our next topic, colonization. What is colonization? Colonization is a process by which a central system of power dominates the surrounding land and its component. It leads to subjection or conquest of one country by another, which lead to political, economic, cultural and social changes of that country which was ruled is called colonization. Imperialism means the policy of extending the rule or authority of an empire or nation over foreign countries or of acquiring and holding colonies and dependencies. Student, the fundamental or the main goal of the imperialist country is to exploit the economy of its colony and derive the maximum benefit out of it. We can see that colonization also leads to poverty in colony and bring prosperity for the imperialist country. Now student, let's read about next topic, colonization in India. The British first established trading port in India in order to purchase spices that were much in demand in Britain and Europe. They first came to trade and not to conquer. Over time, the company earned huge profit from the trade with India and they gradually spread their company's power. Student, here is one important question I would like to ask you. How was Britain, several thousand miles away and with much smaller population, come to dominate an entire subcontinent? The most important factor for this is the decline of the Mughal Empire, lack of unity among the local inhabitants, no real rivals, technological advantage and a clever policy of retreating local elites in power and gaining their cooperation. The Mughal ruler Farooq Sayyar granted important trading rights to English merchants through a royal farman. In 1757, Robert Clive, the general of India, defeated the Nawab of Bengal and his French allies at the Battle of Plassey and became the dominant political power in the Indian subcontinent, and gradually most of the Indian subcontinent became a part of British colony. Now we can see the changes come about in different sphere of life during the 190 years of British colonial rule. Let us take a brief look at them. First changes. Geographical change. During 1757, the Indian subcontinent was divided into a number of kingdoms and provinces. Large provinces like Hyderabad, Awadh accepted British supremacy. There were also some independent kingdoms. They were ruled by the Marathas, Rajputs, and the Jat. During 190 years of rule, the British established their rule in India, the large part directly, and they also maintained their strong indirect rule over all the other local kingdoms, which came to be known as princely state. When India became independent, it has 565 princely states. Now let's talk about political changes. Under the English East India Company, for the first time British rule in India, the British government took direct control over India and ruled the country till 1947. The important political development taken place during British rule, that is organized opposition. Come from local zamindars, peasants, sepoy and tribal people. The other major political development during British period was the establishment of administrative, legal, military and the political structure that formed the backbone of British rule in India. Now let's talk about Indian nationalism. Nationalism signifies love for the nation. When any country under the rule of some other country, it reflects a strong desire or feeling to get independence from foreign rule. The revolt of 1857 was the first great expression of Indian nationalism. Why we call the first expression of Indian nationalism? Because in this revolt we can find that there are many provincial rulers, zamindars, peasants, farmers, artisans, small businessmen, as well as sepoy or the Indian soldier in the British army. They rebel or fight against the colonial rule. But this revolt was suppressed by the Britisher, and Indian people realized that if they stood united, it was possible to overthrow the British. So the concept of India as a nation and Indian as a people come into an existence. Now I can tell you about next topic, that is economic changes. During the British rule, economic changes came in the form of land revenue system. Land revenue was the most important source of income for the government. Land revenue arrangement made by the British differ in different parts of the country. Land revenue fixed at very high rates. It became very difficult to pay taxes by the poor farmer. Along with high taxes, Indian people also face many problems like famine, peasant migration and rebellion across the Indian subcontinent. Even many peasants were forced to cultivate opium instead of food grains. Britishers exported raw materials like jute and cotton to England, and then finished goods were sold back to India at much higher prices. Another important economic changes during the British rule was the destruction of traditional industries such as weaving, pottery, iron smelting, brass work, handlooms, etc. Now let's see how the cultural changes taken place during the British rule. Art, architecture, languages, literature, in fact even the way Indian dress changed tremendously during the British period. Now social change. During the British period, some of the important social changes that took place were around the issue of caste system, tribal societies, and the treatment of women. Caste barrier among the Hindus began to grow weak during the colonial period due to a widespread reforms movement led by Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Dayanand Saraswati, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, etc. They made a lot of efforts to improve the condition of women, the banning of sati, the encouragement of widow remarriage, framing of legislation to prevent child marriage, and regulation to educate the girl child. Even we can see the changes in tribal societies. They will try to integrate them into mainstream society. The second important set of social changes occur with changes in the educational system. Britishers start promoting English education and neglecting vernacular education because they wanted to produce bureaucrats and administrators at the service of the British ruler, and it was possible only if they will get English education. So that slowly middle class people start taking English education. Now let's talk about modern India and colonization or colonial perspective. Student, today we Indians, not all of us but most of us, always talk about the freedom movement and how our nation became independent, about the hard work or hard times causing during the British era, about their atrocities. After this many years of gaining independence from the colonial rule, have we sought after the integral problem within our country? We are on the path of becoming one of the world's superpower. For a change, let us just take a look into the positive impact of British rule in India. How India has benefited from the British Raj. We can see the positive changes in the society, economy, polity of India during the pre-British period as considered era of Indian history. That means it is also considered the dark era of Indian history. It was saying that only with the arrival of the Britisher and the establishment of their rule that brings all round development and progress in India society. For example, we can see the changes in first transportation and communication, number 2 educational system and the English language, number 3 architecture and construction, number 4 cultural, fashion and cricket, number 5 modern technology and ideals, number 5 6th irrigation and agriculture, number 7 modern India and Indians. Now let's talk about our last topic, sources of modern Indian history. There are a number of sources which we can use to understand the modern period of Indian history. I will tell you in brief about sources. Artifacts, modern archaeological sites, coin, monuments, inscription, tribal log, and autobiographies are all primary source of information. For modern Indian history, primary source of information include government report, letters, magazines, newspaper, photographs, maps, diaries and films. Student, this is all about our today's class. So my dear student, read the chapter very well on your own and try to do question and answer in your practice copy. Thank you and have a nice day.